Hey everyone, Sirturmund here again, and today we're bringing you patch notes breakdown and 15 decks that I recommend for you to try out tomorrow when the patch comes out. If you're newer to the channel, I know it's been a while since we did one of this, but every time we have a major patch like this or a new expansion, we do this type of video where we spend like the next hour just going through all the changes, potential new cards, and then also I go ahead and just give you like a bunch of decks to potentially try out. Some of them actually end up being competitive, or they end up being like kind of like a meme, but that's the fun part, right? When everything changes, everybody's experimenting, everybody's trying things out. So today we have the patch 4.1 notes. If you want to skip just straight ahead to the decks, just go ahead to the timestamp. That should be right there. But for the next 40 minutes, I'm literally probably just going to be talking non-stop about all these different changes because there's a lot. It's literally the biggest patch that I can remember in a very, very long time. Maybe the biggest patch ever in the number of changes that happened. I think the biggest things is just how many champion changes happen in this patch, which is absolutely ridiculous. So patch 4.1 is the start of the new beta season in which they're rolling out the first changes of competitive. We can talk a little bit more about that down below once we actually get to the competitive section, because obviously that's all I'm about all of that. Competitive, that's my thing. So we spend some time on that. Let's actually start with the cards first. First of all is Illaoi. Illaoi goes back up to 2 power and 3 power when she levels up. It's pretty nice. It will allow her to level up a little bit quicker, because remember, she levels up when either she sees or the tentacles, like when she sees herself or the tentacles strike. So this should help her level up a little bit quicker. It also makes her one more damage more powerful, right? To be able to actually push damage with that overwhelm. So it's pretty good. I think that's really good. I think what really matters is this change right here, right? But let's not skip the Nayakaboros. Nayakaboros goes now, instead of just being round start, as soon as you summon him, he just right away spawns 2. That's nice. It's a nice change. I don't think this is going to do anything. Honestly, I don't really think this is going to do anything. I mean, it is a nice change, but it doesn't feel like it's good enough to actually get there. You're paying 8 mana to just spawn 2. That's whatever. But Tentacle Smash goes from 4 cost to 3 cost. And this is huge. Obviously, Tentacle Smash got nerfed before, where instead of spawning 3, now spawn 2. And that kind of killed the card, because spawning 2 while still being 4 cost wasn't really doing it. However, now that this is costing 3, it feels really, really solid again. I think this, in combination to the Illaoi buff, is actually going to make Illaoi a very playable champion again. Because there's already decks that played Illaoi that were kind of borderline of potentially being playable. I think the big thing is that now the opponent has to be a lot more worried about how much mana you can potentially keep. Like, you cannot just save spell mana and always threaten this Tentacle Smash starting as soon as like turn 3. Compared to like before, where like if you played Illaoi in turn 4, you would be tapping out a Tentacle Smash and now your opponent can just develop and do whatever they want. The fact that you can save spell mana and then be able to play an Illaoi and still have Tentacle Smash in the back of your hand is huge, and I think makes this card feel so much better. Let's see what else. If we go here now, we're gonna go to Jax. So Jax is the next champion that got quite a few positive changes. So now level 2 Jax goes from having no keyword to now having overwhelm. It's a cute change, because what's gonna happen now is that you can actually the Light of Katia, right? The equipment still has overwhelm as well. So like Jax kind of has like double overwhelm, but the idea is that you can now potentially swap his equipment, whether you play catch or just play any other your improvised equipment, put it on the Jax. The Jax still has overwhelm, and you can take the Light of Katia, which also has overwhelm, and put it on another big unit. Let's say you put it like on a buy, right? Boom. Now you have a buy that has 10 overwhelm, and you still have your Jax that also has overwhelm. Pretty darn good. I think it's nice. It's very niche. I don't think it's the change that really gets Jax going, but it's not bad. I think the next change down here is really what makes a difference. Royal Katia and Fishfight were not Weapon Master cards, which was really weird to everybody, because these cards are obviously like Jax cards, but they both for some reason were only Demacia and not really Weapon Master. So now both these cards get the Weapon Master tag, and while I don't think that's going to make Royal Katia playable, I think it's a very big deal with Fish Fight, because now it means that you can put Fish Fight in any Jax deck. Think of like Jax Ornn. Think of like, I don't know, Jax PNC, which used to be like Timelines. Now you can actually put Fish Fight on those decks. Jax and his package already get a ton of equipment, because obviously they improvise. So the Fish Fight is like free value, right? You're able to kind of remove the opponent's units and kind of go from there. Honestly, very, very, very solid. I really like it a lot as well. I think this change is actually huge and makes Jax and the weapon masters in general feel really solid. Then we go to one of my favorite champions, Ornn. Now, Ornn and some of his package got quite a few changes, right? Ornn himself gets +1/+1, both level 1 and level 2. I think people underestimate how big of a deal just an additional health and an additional power can be sometimes. Like kind of finishing up games, right? Now that the Ornn has 5 power, it can also be searched by stuff like Babbling Yerk, right, from Freljord. But aside from that, it means that let's say you have the Overwhelm equipment, right, on Ornn. That's already 7, and then you forge in 2. That's a 9 Overwhelm already that comes down. Plus, if he's leveled up, you also get the Ram, right? That's also gonna have Overwhelm. It can become really, really crazy really quickly, and the extra stats should allow him to survive against some things that. And I should allow him to be a better blocker into some different things and allow him to survive against some sort of removals that he wouldn't have been able to before. It's a solid change. Don't think it's crazy, but it's nice. However, the next 2 changes I think are a little bit more important. The Weaponsmith's Apprentice goes from 1/1 to 1/2, and the Artisan goes from 1/4 to 2/3. Now, the Apprentice change is not crazy, right? Because she still only has 1 power. However, having 2 health does keep her out of range of like Pokestick, Biofeast, Spirits Unleashed, so that way she's not dying before she actually gets her effect trigger, which makes it a better inclusion to the deck. On the other side, the Artisan I think is amazing. This is a premium stat line that you want on a 2-drop. You either want 3 power and 2 health, or you want 2 health and 3 power. Right? When you have 1 power or 1 health, that's kind of when it gets a little bit awkward. Because if you only have 1 power, you're not really a great blocker because you're only doing 1 damage. When you only have 1 health, you're vulnerable to like pokey, whatever, right? But when you have a 2-3 stat line, it means that you can block almost every other 2-drop, because almost every other 2-drop has 2 health, right? The ones that have more than 2 health usually are not able to kill your Artisan. So again, you're able to now block almost everything, which is exactly what this deck wants. Just more tools to be able to survive the early game, so you can actually stabilize with your weapon, with your equipment units, and then have a big one coming down later. The other change that we see is to the Half-Blood Mender. It goes from a 5/5 to a 4/5, which sucks, but now the ability is even better. Now, instead of just forging an ally once, it forges an ally twice. So it's giving +2/+2 to any equipment that one of your allies might have. It's nice. Is it actually good? I don't know. I still don't think I like this card. I still don't think I like this card for 5 costs. It's not doing a lot, right? I still don't think I don't care about putting just I'd rather have like the Artisan and the Weaponmith's Apprentice doing that instead of committing 5 mana for this. Because we have all the cheap ways of having our Forge, I still don't think that this is gonna see play. But I'll be glad to be proven wrong, because this card is very cool. And look at the art. The art is so manly, right? Like, I wish my chests looked like that, but unfortunately, I'm here making videos for you guys, so I don't have time to work out. But anyways, let's go to the next one. Next one, we get a Rise buff. Rise buff. Now, I will say, right, I love Rise, and you'll see me. I posted quite a few Rise videos. You do not want this champion to actually be good. Let me tell you right now. As much as I love Rise, the Rise playstyle will be toxic and unfun to play against if this champion is actually good. Okay? So make sure what you wish for, right? Like, be careful when you ask for a lot of Rise buff. Now, this buff here is kind of irrelevant. I mean, it's nice, but it's really irrelevant in my opinion. All it happens is that now the Shard Reverence, instead of refilling 2 spell mana, refills your whole spell mana. That doesn't really matter, right? Because, I mean, it could matter. It could matter, right? It could matter if you're starting the turn off with no spell mana, then that's the only time that it matters, right? Otherwise, I guess also if you start with 2. Yeah, if you start with anything less than 3 spell mana, I guess it does matter. But most of the times, honestly, like with Rise decks, in my experience, you are gonna have that full spell mana just there chilling. So like you're using your 2 spell mana and then summoning the shard, you still waste that 1 spell mana that was left over. So I think it's a nice change. It's not bad. It definitely has a lot of scenarios where it could work. I just don't think that this is really what Rise needed to become like super playable. But again, I'm glad that he's not. I'm glad that he's not. I think people. And again, this is coming from someone. I'm a freaking degenerate, right? Like most of you started following me because you guys know me for TK Raka. Like Starspring can also be very degenerate. Then Bandle Tree was one of my favorite decks, right? And Rise, like there's a theme here. As someone who loves these decks, I can tell you, you do not want them to be like top of the meta because it's gonna be miserable to play against. So I think this is a safe buff that doesn't really break Rise. Shadow Shift goes from 3 cost to 2 cost. Does this ever see play like in, let's say, like a Kennen Ahri type of deck? I guess honestly, it's like a recall, right? It's a one more expensive mana recall, right? So instead of 1, you're playing 2 for the recall, but you get to have a Living Shadow in its place. The only downside is that the Living Shadow still dies to like a Mystic Shot, right? If you know, a lot of times when you use Recall, the 1 mana Ionia spell, you're using it because you're saving your unit from some sort of removal. Whether it's Mystic Shot, Get Excited, you know, Seraphine's spell, whatever. Summoning the Shadow Shift, the only reason you want to spend that extra mana is if you know that that Shadow is actually going to trade or kill something. But if you're using it when you're saving your unit against like a Mystic or Get Excited, it's still going to die to that. So it's still not going to push damage. So I don't think Shadow Shift is actually going to be good, unfortunately. So I don't expect this to see play, even though it now costs 2 mana. Haze Spike, on the other hand, I think this is a very, very solid change. Haze Spike was completely busted at 1 mana, so they had to nerf it back again to 2. Because originally it was 2, then they went to 1, now they went back to 2. Now, to make up for that, because I do think that a 2 mana deal 2 is kind of weak, they have raised damage to 3. I think this is really, really good. I think dealing 3 damage to any unit is absolutely huge. I think it's kind of... I still think 1 mana Haze Spike is stronger because having just 1 mana to answer anything is freaking amazing. But at 2 mana deal 3, this is close. This is close to power. Close to the power level of the 1 mana Haze Spike. So I think it's very solid. I think you're gonna see this card be main deckable in pretty much every, like, I guess like Kendra Nasus or any Viego deck, to be honest, because dealing 3 just hits so many things that you wouldn't hit before by just dealing 2. So I really dig this. Then we go to another one of my favorite champions, and this is Master Yi. Now, instead of Master Yi now levels up in the deck. Let's just put it this way, right? So now all your other Master Yis, as soon as they have attack, they start leveling up in the deck, which is nice. Obviously, you still need to attack with Master Yi, but now what it means that if your Master Yi is like an 8 out of 12, for example, and then it gets Vengeance, when you summon the next Master Yi, you still only need to do 1 attack to level up. You no longer need to restart again from 0. This is very, very solid. Obviously, it only applies if you have 2 Master Yis, which join 2 champions already puts you kind of like an advantage in a lot of games. But it is very, very good because now Master Yi has the level up threat more often than not. So I dig it. I think this is a very solid change. And I think Master Yi is slowly, but surely becoming really its own thing, right? Where it's going to be like a super big threat that people are going to have to watch out for, which I absolutely love because I love this champion. Then we go to Maokai, and probably another really good change, right? Remember, it's the same thing that we talked about when we were talking about the Artisan. Having 1 power is a little bit awkward because 1 power means that you're not really a great blocker. So now Maokai gets an additional power, so now it goes to 2-4 or a 3-5. At 3-5 is even better because now it can also be quote-unquote fearsome blocker. But at 2-4 is really nice. Now, most of the times, you don't want to block with Maokai, right? Because you want this Maokai to stay alive. Maokai is kind of more like a back engine that you want to continuously trigger every turn. So it's kind of awkward to block with him, but if you need to for some reason, at least now he's a much better blocker to do so with. So I think it's a pretty solid change that makes him very good. Then we go to Shyvana, and oh my god, what a freaking buff this is. And I'm so excited to spam dragons when, as soon as the patch drops tomorrow. Now, Shyvana, now, instead of just seeing ally, like, she still needs to see the dragons hit. So, I said that wrong. She no longer needs to see the dragons hit, because now, just like Master Yi, she levels up in deck. Now, obviously, to make up for that, they did bump this up, so now it's going to be 16 instead of 12. But that means that if for some reason you don't draw Shyvana early, it's still okay. It also means that as the game goes on, Shyvana is going to be leveled up naturally. Like, even if your first Shyvana just dies, your second Shyvana is probably going to come down into the field leveled up. And level 2 Shyvana is one of the best mid-range champions out there. Because now, not only are you still getting the Strappling Strike, but you're getting one that costs 2. So now they even made the strike cost less. So now you're getting a free single combat that heals you. You're able to level up Shyvana a lot more consistently. So you're going to see level 2 Shyvana almost every game if you go against dragons, because of how easy it is to get to 16 damage. Like, this is, oh my goodness, this is absolutely nuts. I think this is going to make Shyvana super playable. I think people underestimate just how easily she can get out of control if left unchecked, especially with the free value that you're going to generate from this that now costs 1 less. Like, I can't believe they did this. Like, a 2 cost Strappling Strike is very darn good. Be ready for the Dragon Overlords. Now, I say that, but dragons still have a lot of consistency issues, right? Like, Shyvana is not the only thing that dragons archetype need to actually be good. This is going to make them this is going to make them better. But I don't know if it's going to make them good enough to be tier 1, unfortunately. But I'm still excited to just smack the dragons and try to rank up with them as much as I can. Then we get to Tristana. So now Tristana goes from having quick attack to having quick attack on impact. So now he naturally has at least impact 1. It's nice, it's cute, I don't hate it. Obviously, remember that she's going to continue getting impact if she's on the field and you keep like summoning multi-region allies. So it's very likely that her impact is going to get super out of control anyways. I don't know if this changes enough, right? I don't know if this changes enough. The impact is nice. It might translate to an additional 2 or 3 damage over the span of the game. I don't know. It seems like too little. For a champion that sees like no play, it seems like too little of a change, right? I would have loved to see her. Oh man, you can't give her another health. Like, she's already so healthy at 3 HP. I don't know what I would like to see from Tristana. Yeah, I think, oh man, giving her another nav weapon too dangerous. So I can kind of see why Riot just opted to do the impact. It's kind of like a safe buff without completely like breaking her. So I think it's decent. I just don't think it's going to help her get as many new decks as you might expect. Then we go to Lissandra. Now, when she's summoned, not only is she summoning a frozen Thrall, but she advances that Thrall by 2. Wow. That's huge, right? So obviously Thralls got nerfed to now be 9 countdown instead of 8, which always felt really bad. However, with Lissandra coming down and reducing that by 2 right away, now you pretty much get a Thrall that comes down at 7. Now, obviously, the downside to that is it's forcing you to have to play Lissandra early. So that's kind of the trade-off that Riot is going for here. Yes, you get a Thrall that's going to count down quicker, but now you're putting your Lissandra under threat before you level her up. So that's the trade-off that you're going to have to play around when you're playing Thralls to kind of see if it's worth it to sacrifice Lissandra just to kind of get this Thrall more earlier rather than later, or if it's worth it to save Lissandra for later and forget about the fact that you're advancing by 2. You're going to have to make those decisions depending on the game. Regardless, I think this is a really nice buff and should potentially make Thralls be playable again, in my opinion. Especially because we still have stuff like Rockbear Shepherd that are really, really nice. Then we move on to Kayle. Kayle goes from a 6 cost to a 5 cost. And to make up for it, she does lose 1 power and 1 health. However, now when she's summoned, instead of granting other allies, she grants every ally, including herself, +1. So effectively, she gained 1 cost, going from 6 to 5, and all she did was lose the health. I think I'll take that trade-off every single time. Having Kayle earlier on the field, like turn 5, is huge. And actually makes her an even better finisher to kind of, like in an elusive deck, for example, to buff up all elusives even earlier to try to push for like a complete crazy win condition. Kayle level 2 is still kind of the same thing, right? But again, just like level 1, she's granting everybody, including herself, that +1/+1 instead of just other allies. Really, really solid. Because here you get to make up for the health that you lost on the buff. I think this is a buff. Obviously, I think it is a great buff. Is it enough to make Kayle playable? I think it's very close, to be honest. I think Kayle was already. Okay, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that Kayle was already playable. She wasn't. I might enjoy Kayle myself, and I had a lot of fun with her when she first came out. But she really was one of the weakest champions and barely leveled up, etc. I think this is going to push her to a more playable position. I think costing 5... I think people in Legends of Runeterra always underrate a cost difference, right? Something costing 1 less, and when the trade-off is not even that big, it's a huge deal. So I think you are going to see Kayle kind of be like a finisher in a lot more decks. Think of like an elusive target to actually use to get there. So yeah, I'm excited for Kayle. I'm excited. Then Lucian kind of gets the same treatment. Now, Lucian goes from 2 costs to 1 cost. However, the Lucian change of stats is a lot more impactful than Kayle. Because now, even though Lucian gains 1 cost, he loses 1 power and 1 health. I don't know how to feel about this at all. Because the thing with Lucian is that, obviously, you want to keep Lucian alive, right? And having that extra health helped a lot in keeping Lucian alive. With 1 health, you're so vulnerable to Bow Feast, Pokestick, Group Shot, Spirits Unleashed, anything. Like, think of like any random 1 damage ping out there, and Lucian's gonna die to it, right? I think it's gonna be really, really problematic to actually keep Lucian on the field as he should to actually be able to level up. So I don't know that I like this. I actually think that this... I can't call it a nerf, but I can't call it a buff either. I'm like neutral right now. Because I do feel like the cost is huge, right? Again, it's the same thing that I was playing with Kayle. Something costing 1 less is a big deal. However, the stats nerf is so significant that I don't think I like losing that for the 1 cost. It should let you curve out better into certain things, for sure. And that might be what pushes Lucian over the edge. So, we'll see. Then we go to kind of like followers now, right? So Albus Ferros goes from dealing 1 to now dealing 3. So it's guaranteed to dealing 3 plus whatever else, depending on how many 6-cost spells you use. Pretty nice. Makes him to be like a really potent burn finisher. Because remember, a leveled up Jayce already has access to like Shock Blast to hit face and hit 6 damage just like that. Now add an Albus Ferros to that when he comes down, you're going to have to answer him. Otherwise, you're going to be hit by like 5 burn. Because obviously, every time, by the time that Albus Ferros comes down, he's already going to have used like 2 6-cost spells, right? So expect this card to always deal like 5 damage to your nexus. I think this is actually super dangerous. I might see Albus Ferros kind of make his way into like some type of Jayce burn deck. I don't know. Hey, remember Decimate got nerfed to 6 mana. I wonder if we can actually do like a burn Jayce deck now, for sure. Decimate nerf, right? Think about it. Think about that. Maybe give me your suggestions in the comments if you think of something. Then we have Way to Judgment. It's a card that almost nobody played. Went from 4 costs to 3 costs, and now instead of dealing 7 to a follower, it only deals 4. I hate it. I hate it, man. Like 3 mana to deal 2 to a champion or deal 4 to a follower doesn't feel fair, especially for a slow speed spell. So still unplayable in my opinion. Dragoncaller though, 6 costs to 5 costs. And again, I kind of like a broken record now. But 1 cost reduction is huge. Especially because this guy has a tune. Oh my goodness. So this Dragoncaller is going to come down in turn 5 now instead of turn 6. And then if you start triggering your flow, you're going to get a free Empyrean every single turn. That's actually super crazy in my opinion. The fact that this didn't lose any stats for this buff is nuts. The hardest thing with this unit is how do you build around it, right? You have to have a deck that's able to play spells proactively and not reactively, right? Because you have to proactively trigger the flow so that next turn you get that Imperium. Is there a unit deck that's doing that right now? I don't think so. I think a lot of our unit decks want to be reactive, so that's the only thing. It's going to be kind of hard to find a spot that really makes sense for Dragoncaller. But I really like this change. I think this card could legit be really good in a lot of decks. I'm actually super excited to experiment with this and see if we can like commit to a scenario where you're just kind of beating people down by having double Dragoncaller and just literally summoning 2 free Imperiums every freaking turn. Like, can you imagine how nuts that would be? So yeah, I'm interested to try this out. Let's go to the nerfs. Now, this is the fun part, right? This is the stuff that shakes up the meta. Now, we are going to have a nerf to the Super Mega Death Rocket. Jins kind of was taking over everything, right? Instead of dealing 4 to the Nexus, ER now only deals 3. So it's still dealing 1 to the enemy units. It still costs 1, but now it deals 1 less damage. It's not bad. It's not bad. It should buy you a couple more turns. Actually, well, it buys you just 1 turn on average, potentially. It buys you like an additional turn, right? To be able to survive a percent lethal. But a lot of times, if you have lost to Jin stacks, you know that if you had that 1 more turn, you would have just won that game like that, right? That's what this is doing right here. It gives you that extra turn to be able to kill that Jins, to be able to stabilize, to be able to finish the game with your big overgrown unit, whatever it is. I think it's a fair nerf that shouldn't kill Jins, just kind of tune her down. Because but then Riot was like, okay, you know, we're not gonna kill Nerf, or we're not gonna kill Jins, but then we're gonna kill every other single PNC deck out there. Whoa! Yeah, this change is actually ridiculous. They're actually making Poro Cannon cost 1. Wow. Wow, that's so bad. That's so bad. Oh man, that's so bad. The threat of having 0 mana and still having Poro Cannon in your hand to answer something. For example, if you had a Fizz and you have a 0 mana, the people will be like, opponents wouldn't dare. If they try to kill your Fizz, you just respond with Poro Cannon and still cancel the spell with 0 mana. But now you have to actually have that 1 pesky mana. I think this change is huge. Huge. It's gonna really decrease the power of Jin's Lulu. Right? A lot of the combo was to have that Lulu and then Poro Cannon just jumpers, blah, blah. You can still do that, but you have to save a mana to do that, which a lot of those decks don't want to because they want to just press units on the field and kind of attack right away. This is a huge nerf. Huge nerf to almost every single PNC deck out there that was using Poro Cannon. You know what this doesn't affect? This doesn't affect Echo Jins because they were not playing Poro Cannon. So guess what? You can still have a tier 1 Jin deck out there because I don't think that Super Mega Death Rocket doing 3 to the enemies is enough to kill your Echo Jin. So still expect to see her there. Yeah, this is huge. This is huge. Oh man. That hurts. That hurts my soul. Like hurts my soul. Ay. Quietus. Instead of killing a unit with 2 or less power, now it can kill a unit with a total health and power of 4 or less. So there's a couple things here, right? You gotta kind of think about this one. Let's put a thinking cap on. It's a lot worse, in my opinion. In most situations that you were using Quietus today on, it's a lot worse. Because it's not gonna kill Veigar, for example, right? Veigar has 5 health total. Has 5 stats total, 1 power, 4 health. It's not gonna kill Braum because Braum has 6 health, 5 health, whatever it is. It's not gonna kill a level 2 Nora, right? However, while it's not hitting those units that it used to hit before, it is hitting a new subset of units, right? It could hit something like, let's say, Ruthless Raider, right? The failure that's a 3/1, boom, gets hit by this. Tough Speaker. Oh no, Tough Speaker is a 3/2. I'm thinking of the Hollow, the Phantom Butler. Yeah, whatever. You know, the 2-drop Hollow that has a 3/1 stat line actually dies to this now. You know what else dies to this? Any unit or champion that has actually gotten damage enough for the stats to fall below the total of 4. What I mean by that, let's say that you have, I don't know, let's say that you have, what's a unit? Let's say Veigar, right? Veigar is a 1/4. If Veigar gets damaged by like your Poke Stick and becomes a 1/3, then you can actually use Quietus to kill him. Now, Veigar is not a good example because Veigar used to die to the old Quietus. But I'm trying to think of champions that didn't used to die to Quietus that could not die to Quietus. Oh man, yeah, having a hard time. But you kind of get what I'm saying. If you have any unit that has 3 power that didn't get hit by Quietus before, when they go down to 1 health, you can actually Quietus them and kill them. That's good, but that's a very niche scenario, and it's why I think that Quietus is a lot worse, and I don't expect it to be as popular as it once used to be. And Akaboros goes from burst speed to focus speed. That's actually pretty good change. Very good change. I think it's very fair. This card is a staple in almost every single Bilgewater deck. It was about time that it got hit. What matters here is that now you cannot rely on Aghanim Akaboros to give you a burst speed blocker, and that kind of completely changes everything, which is absolutely not. So great job there, Riot. I think that's a very fair nerf. Katarina. Yeah, get screwed, Katarina. Katarina goes from a 3/2 to a 2/2. You know what's funny? That Katarina, because she's a 2/2 now, she can actually get hit by the new Quietus because her stats are actually only 4. But Katarina becomes from a 3/2 to a 2/2. Now, honestly, no, this change does matter. I was going to say that this change does not matter, but it does matter. Because now you could have like a Troll Shen, right? Troll Shen reduces 2 power, brings the Katarina to 0, it stops her attack. You could have, we were talking about Echo Gens, you could have Scrying Sands, reduces 2 power, Katarina now cannot attack, right? There is a lot of things in the game that reduce exactly 2 power that are now able to hit Katarina that were not able to hit her before. So even though effectively the power doesn't matter a lot because most people were blocking Katarina or whatever, and she's gonna recall anyways, really her power comes from the other stuff that she's like enabling by the Valley. Although that's the case, it now creates more counters for her, and that's exactly what we look for in card games. We love our counters. So this is amazing. It's amazing. Good job, Ryan. Amazing change. Yeah, level 2, whatever. And then Riot is doing something cool with this patch. We have 2 new cards. So this is like a random little variety patch here that they just introduced 2 random cards. So the first one is Soul Cleave. It's a slow speed 3-mana spell from Shadow Isles. Kill an ally to summon 2 ephemeral copies of it. Now, be mindful. It doesn't say 2 exact copies. It only says 2 copies. I still think this is freaking amazing. I still think this is freaking amazing, right? It's like a little brother of the Ionia 6-mana spell that creates 2 ephemeral copies. Obviously, the downside here is that you're losing your unit, and you're not creating exact copies, and whatever. You get what I'm saying, though. Like, I think there's some potential here. I think this can actually create some fun scenarios, some fun combos. Think of like doing this with like Scion. Right? You attack with your Scion, you attack with your level up Scion, whatever, and then they're like, oh, well, now you can attack again. Well, you killed your own Scion, and not only did you get the Valley, which gives you the ephemeral Scion, but then you got also 2 other Scions that are gonna then die themselves and create another Rally, right? So this card was actually freaking made literally for Scion. So like, Naxxus Shadow Isles with Scion legit could be a big threat. I think Nips is gonna be excited about this because I remember that months ago she was experimenting with this whole like Scion Shadow Isles strategy. There's other combos that you can use with this card. There's one of them that I'm gonna showcase later on my deck recommendation. It's fun. It's fun. It's a nice card. Then you have Castigate. It's a 7-mana slow speed kill all followers. So it's kind of like a Ruination, but only for followers, not for champions. But it costs 2 less. I think it is actually super, super nice. Honestly, another region getting like a Ruination that now you have to play around. Obviously, it's not hitting champions, so that is a big deal. But think about how many decks rely so much on having like a big board presence of followers. This is able to completely mitigate them and stop them on their track. I really did this. really love this card as well. I don't think it's gonna be like super playable everywhere, but I could see it being played as a one-off in a lot of Shurima decks, just to completely like knock people out from just killing you on the spot. There's a bunch of Perfect Champions at Judgments. If you don't play Perfect Champions, I recommend it. Really fun single player experience in Legends of Runeterra. I played it every now and then when I have like nothing else to do in rank. I haven't played it recently because obviously I'm here with you all, but I recommend playing it. It's really fun, and they keep having a lot of content changes too, and nerfs, buffs, everything. All right, new items as well. Cool. Then we have competitive, and we have the roadmap. Let's first look at the bug fixes before we go up there to see if there's anything important. Blah blah blah. Oh wow, that's a big bug. Interesting. Shadow Assassin was originally listed having the Darkening subtype. Okay, so Shadow Assassin no longer has Darken. Well, and then actually, this is actually a big deal, by the way, because remember that Aatrox gets drawn to your hand if you have played multiple Darken units, right? The fact that now the Shadow Assassin is not a Darkening unit means that if you choose Shadow Assassin and play him, it's not going to count towards you join Aatrox. Sometimes I've actually joined Aatrox from playing Raz as my third Darkening unit. Which reminds me, I thought in the patch preview, they had listed nerfs for Aatrox and Kayn, but I don't see them here. They did like a patch preview on Twitch yesterday, but I don't see the nerfs here, huh? Okay. Honestly, they're not listed here, but I know they mentioned in the patch preview, so it's potential that maybe they missed it here. But there are some nerfs to Aatrox. I don't want to like interrupt the flow of the video and look that up, but if the nerfs to Aatrox and Kayn that were talked about in the patch preview are real, which I wouldn't see why not, then that's a significant nerf. Right now, Aatrox can only be drawn by unique Darken, so you can't just equip the same equipment twice to get Aatrox in your hand, and then Kayn is now going to take 4. Both are very fair nerfs. I think that's the strongest part of those decks is the fact that you can just reliably draw them every single time. So, yeah. Let's see. World Ender accurately states that only follower allies... Finish with Rock Bishop, the rest of the landmark will be destroyed by this naturalist when Team Spirit resolves. Finish with Twin Wind, there is a sack copy. That's pretty good. People can now experiment with Twin Wind technique. Fix an issue with Shooting the Forest, and complete some equipment version. Fix an issue, where the stir Sunday created Natsus Boon that ascended to had no effect when someone. Okay. Cool. Yeah, okay, so that's pretty much it, right? Let's talk a little bit about the competitive and the roadmap. Now, obviously, you all know I'm a very competitive person, and my channel is mostly because competitive. If you haven't seen this from Riot, I really recommend it. I really recommend reading this. It's kind of highlighting how the new seasons and competitive format is going to work. Overall, I'm absolutely excited, right? Seasonals are no longer a thing. Instead, we're kind of getting more frequent tournaments called Daily Rumbles, and then also Runeterra Opens in the weekends. So Daily Rumbles, as the name implies, are things that you can do every single day. You can only enter them once per day, and if you win 6 times or lose 3 times, then that's the end of your run. I think they mentioned that they were going to fix some of the timing here, but again, we'll have to see how that looks like, because right now the timing is really accurate for East Coast people, since this is like 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. for East Coast. So yeah, it's really cool because in the Daily Rumble, they're going to be experimenting with different formats, like the Champion Unlimited Best of 1, the Free Build Best of 1, all seem really cool and should kind of showcase the strength of some deck builders that are able to kind of come up with like battle strategies when you remove some of those restrictions of champions and like regular other stuff. Really cool. And the standards, obviously the Runeterra Opens are going to be amazing as well. There's also a lot of rewards for you doing the Daily Rumbles, a lot of like different stuff. There is going to be some buy-ins with them, but that's fine. I think it's a nice way to sync your green shards. And then obviously the Runeterra Opens and this whole stuff is that you're going to get now your World Qualifier Opens, your qualifying points. Because one thing that has changed now is that we're no longer going to have like a regional qualifiers. We're just going to have less people being selected and then go straight into an actual Worlds 2023 pool where you're going to have 64 players competing against each other. And this kind of tells you how you're going to be able to qualify to the World Championship. Honestly, it's freaking amazing. I think it's actually really, really nice. I'm super excited for it. It's going to be a lot more competitive, but it will allow more people to be able to get into the competitive scene, because you no longer need to be masters to actually be able to join, or you no longer need to win like all these last chance gauntlet to be able to join the seasonal. Anybody is able to join a Runeterra Open. So even if you take a break and didn't get a chance to rank up, all you need to do is just practice, choose your best of 3 lineup, maybe steal it from me, from one of my Master Runeterra articles, and then jump into Runeterra Open and just go from there. Again, a bunch of PvP rewards. We're gonna have titles, etc., trophies. It's gonna be really, really freaking fun. And yeah, grassroots tournament supports, creation. Yeah, I mean, again, just go to the article and kind of read it more if you're very interested. And then we have the roadmap, right? So the roadmap is going to be a new way that they're going to be doing things. Now it's going to be like 1 month you get balance changes like we did today. Then the next month you get like a variety patch where you get like a few cards. And then the third month is when we get a new expansion. So it's going to be kind of like a 3-month rotation where we go balance changes, variety patch, new expansion. It's going to be crazy. I think having like consistent new champions and stuff every 3 months is pretty nice. And 3 months I think feels long enough for like the meta to go through the phases, especially because you're still gonna have a balance change in one of this month, and you're also gonna have access to the variety patch as well, variety set that comes kind of like in the middle of the month as well. Really, really cool. I'm really excited for the direction that Runeterra is going. Just props all together to the Runeterra team. Is actually amazing. So yeah, okay, so that'll be it for my patch notes breakdown. So I know some of you have been waiting, so let's go ahead and jump right ahead to the decks. All right, so let's jump right ahead to the 15 deck recommendations that I have for you all tonight. And I want to start with Illaoi, which I think obviously, like we talked about, received a lot of very powerful buffs. Now, the first deck that I recommend to try out this new expansion is going to be Vayne Illaoi. Now, this deck is something that you might have seen on our channel before, and also seen in Runeterra's channel, because Runeterra was one of the persons that kind of made this list and this pairing popular. I think it's obviously Vayne has received quite a few nerfs since then, but I still think it's very powerful, because what Vayne provides to this archetype is a way to get a free attack on your Illaoi or any of your other tentacles to actually get a lot of value from the god, etc., etc. It's actually really, really solid. So this deck list is a regular mid-range Demacia with Illaoi type of deck list. You're playing obviously a lot of early units. So you have your 1-drops, you have your 2-drops here. Your 2-drops, sorry, this has a tomb, but it's not really a 2-drop. You have your 3-drops, you have your 4-drops. I like the Reflector because obviously with the Scout, you're able to kind of get the rally at the opponent's attack. Now we're able to, we have Fish Fight. I don't know what I said now. We have Fish Fight, we have Cataclysm, and then we have the Tentacle Smash, right? So Tentacle Smash is kind of like another Fish Fight, allowing us to be able to strike and kill the opponent's units. And Kaboros is still like the 2 champion strength, even though it costs a lot, and then triple Isle God. We have 3, 5, 8 equipment, which I think is a good enough number to actually get our stuff like the Defector enable and potentially get value from the Fish Fight, and also get value from the fact that Vayne is going to have the tumble to attach that equipment for free. The deck I think is going to be really solid, and you're going to see a lot of people playing this. It is quite a bit weak in my opinion to some like Naxos control type stuff. Just because obviously if they can remove our units with like flocks, etc., then it's going to be very tough for us to do anything. And it's also relying on us attacking, so it's very easy for them to be able to have an answer with Disintegrate or Flock or Scorch Earth, etc. So just keep that in mind, but I think it should do really well against almost everything else, especially if you press the Champion Strength card to just win the game. Because Champion Strength with Illaoi and a Tentacle on the field is just automatically GG, because the Illaoi copies the stats from the Tentacle twice. Is absolutely freaking nuts. So yeah, really, really solid deck. One of the first ones that I would recommend if you're interested in China Illaoi. Now, if you're a little bit more on the wild side, then the second Illaoi deck that I have for you is Illaoi Gwen. Now, the idea with this Illaoi Gwen deck is that obviously you're able to stack the Halo, and then you're able to present a lot of overwhelm damage, because Illaoi or the tentacles with the Seas Boys are going to be able to get overwhelmed. So it ends up being really nice. You're able to push overwhelm damage that way and win the game. And now you might think that this deck is a lot weaker than the Gwen Noxus variants, which might be the case, but we do still have access to a rally. Remember that Bilgewater has access to Blood in the Water, so we can still play the upland foyer and sometimes be able to get the rally on the opponent's attack turn and get that second Ghastly Band to come out, you know, at the opponent's turn, or do it after your first attack for the same same result. So we still do have access here to a big powerful rally, and we still have the same value here with the tentacle smash and everything else. It's actually kind of cool as well, because if your tentacle survives, like if you put your tentacle first and gets buffed by the Hallow and the opponent doesn't kill it, then now the tentacle smash is able to kill almost anything, because it's still going to keep the power from the Hallow buff that he had before. I think it's an experimental deck, obviously. I'm not saying that it's good, but I think it's worth giving a shot just because of the potential that you have here with a really big overwhelming Illaoi, kind of take it over the game. So yeah. Then moving on from Illaoi, we're going to jump to Shyvana. Now, obviously, I'm also super excited for Shyvana. Honestly, is for a good reason. This is going to be like freaking amazing, right? I do think Shyvana is a lot easier to level up and more consistent. Now she's going to be leveled up even when you draw her late, which is amazing, giving you access to that. Now, this version of Shyvana is your regular Demacia target, but this is the version that I played when Kadrigan got buffed, and I still think Kadrigan is super underrated, and I want to play him again. So obviously the idea here is that you kind of go in all greedy. You have Dragon Shot, you have Herald the Dragons, that you're trying to cheat out your dragons early on. And then once you do, you can put like the Kadrigan, the Fused Fireblind, and now you have a unit that has Spell Shield, Fury, and Challenger, and +1/+1 to be able to pull. You can also put on the Wind the White Flame, triggering the Faded and giving it +1/+1, or on the Shyvana. Regardless, you're able to get a lot of value from putting Challenger and +1/+1 on one of these dragons. The best target though is Firebrand, just because of the Spell Shield that it comes with. And then obviously if you have a Ruined Dragon on the field, then those dragons are going to start getting out of control really quickly. That's also why we still play the Dark in Lowstone now, so that we're able to actually attach it to those dragons and make them even more powerful. And then the rest of the deck is kind of like a regular strike, single combat, concerted. You're going to get a lot of strikes from Shyvana that cost 2. You have Pill Cascade and the Dragon Shot for the draw, so that you're always potentially able to have a dragon in your hand. I think it's going to be a very solid mid-range deck that the opponent's going to have to watch out for, because it's going to be really easy for them to just get overrun by a level of Shyvana if they're not careful. Is it going to be good? Who knows, but I think it's going to be very solid. Let's move on to the next one, which is going to be Lucian Shyvana. And this is actually Dragons Shadow Owls. Now, Shadow Owls received some dragons with the Viego expansion, the Crawling Viper Worm and the Kamagoran Dragon. But it's never been like a coherent Shadow Owls dragon deck, in my opinion, right? So here we try to make that work by combining that package, because this package of the Viper Worm and the Kamagoran, their niche is that they have to strike something for you to play them. What does that synergize with? That synergizes with Lucian and your Curse Keeper and your Undying. So the trick that I'm trying to do here is that I have Lucian in the field, I could have a Curse Keeper, and then I can put the Crawling Viper Worm on it, and now my Lucian is already like a 1 out of 4 for his level of condition, etc, etc. Is that going to work very often? Who knows? But the moments that it does is going to be really funny and really nice. So that's kind of why I wanted to try it out, see how far we can get there with like a strategy like this. Also, I do like the fact that we have the Undying, because we are going to get a lot of like single combats from level 2 Shyvana. So we're able to just kind of dump them into the Undying if we need to, instead of trying to sacrifice one of our other units, right? So that's also another benefit of why I kind of like this Undying package to go along with the Shyvana Lucian Shadow Owls idea. So give this a shot and kind of see how it goes. The rest of the deck is kind of very straightforward and kind of doing the same thing with Kadrigan here that we talked about on the previous deck. Next, we're going to continue with Lucian. And this is probably going to be the most popular Lucian deck that you're going to see in rank over the next few days. And that's going to be Lucian Azir. Now, the idea with this deck is pretty straightforward. You level up Lucian very quickly because of the Sand Soldiers having Ephemeral and just straight up dying. And then once you have the Lucian leveled up, you're going to be getting a rally every time that you attack if you have Sand Soldiers, because obviously, again, the Sand Soldiers are going to die, triggering your rally, allowing you to attack again. So this is kind of doing that strategy. and the rest of the deck is kind of supporting cards to kind of get us there, right? So Doomkeeper is really good because it gives us 2 cards to advance Azir, and one of them is a Sense Soldier that can advance our Lucian. Pirate, really good, same thing. Ephemeral, it gives us an equipment. Forsaken by Kai to kind of get us what we need to do. Broadwind, because Broadwind is still Broadwind. Domination is amazing. We have enough 1-drops and the Sand Soldiers to kind of buff everything up. I like the Regina Defector, honestly, because the Scout can be kind of cute as well. Especially because we have Bloodletters and the Fire Ref equipment to actually do to enable it. And then Voices of the Reason, I think, is going to be really underrated in this deck as well. You kind of see the potential that he has in those Epic Gens type of decks. He has the same potential here because he's going to be buffing all your Sand Soldiers and kind of doing a ton of damage that way. Ranger's Resolve to save our Lucian, Blinding Assault to get the Scout value with the Sand Soldiers, double Rod Negation, triple Cataclysm, and then Darkening Bloodletters to kind of go for a little bit more punch when we're attacking with these units. I think this version probably not the most optimized, but I think it's very solid to get started if you just want to try this deck and kind of see how it goes and kind of make adjustments from there depending on how the meta is doing. But I think this deck again is going to see a lot of play early on. Moving on to the next champion, and this one's going to be Tristana. And for Tristana, I'm bringing one of my favorite decks back, because this deck is going to use 2 things. It's going to use Tristana, and then it's also going to use the new Soul card. Now, pretend that this Fresh Offering right here, that is a 3-mana slow speed spell, is actually the new spell. Shoot, I forgot the name of it already. The new spell, which is something. I forgot the name of it. Regardless, you know what I'm talking about. The one that kills your ally and summon 2 ephemeral copies of it. That's what this spell is right here. But when I made this, it wasn't in Runeterra AR, that's why it's kind of like this, so don't mind that. But the idea with this deck is simple, right? You're kind of just doing a lot of value early on, right? You have all these units, all these ephemeral, all these Bandle City shenanigans, getting a lot of multi-region allies, reducing the Mayor, leveling up your Tristana really fast, sometimes getting Poppy to stick and push a lot of damage, blah, blah, blah. That's whatever. You guys are used to the Bandle City Swarm. What makes this deck different than all the Bandle City decks is this card right here, Bandle Gunners. When was the last time that you could say that you saw a Bandle Gunners deck? Now, the idea with this Bandle Gunners is it's an 8-mana that comes down with Spell Shield and has Impact 4. Now, you're copying the Bandle Gunners using Splinter Soul or using not Fresh Offerings, using the new card, right? That way you're able to get double Bandle Gunners on the field. And when you attack with them, each one of them is going to have an impact 4, which means that now you're pushing. Actually, when you do the Splinter Soul, by the way, it's going to have impact 8 because it does an exact copy. So it copies the impact 4 that the original Bandle Gunner already has, and that's an additional 4. So when you attack, if it's Splinter Soul, you're going to be attacking for 12 impact. If it's just the other card, then you're just attacking for 8 impact because it's now doing an exact copy. But it's still the general idea is there. The general idea is that you're kind of notching down the opponent with those impact triggers and then be able to just smack them in the face with an atrocity. Because remember, Tristana has impact, Tenor has impact, everything's going to get impact once Tristana is leveled up, so it can add up really, really quickly if the opponent's not careful. So that's my first attempt against the Tristana for this patch. My second attempt is kind of taking that up a notch, and this is going to be Tristana Sivir. So Tristana Shyvana. Now, again, like we talked for the other deck, the idea is pretty straightforward the early game. You played all these Bandle City multi-region cards to try to level your Tristana, and because as you summon them on the field and Tristana is there, these cards are also getting additional impacts, additional power, yada yada yada, you know the drill. How this deck finishes games is through Absorber and Shell Game. Now, Shell Game is you refill your spell mana and you give an ally elusive and +1/+1 for this round. You know what card will do really well with this? Sivir. If Sivir's leveled up and you give for Shell Game, then that means your whole board is going to have elusive and potentially also Spell Shield, winning you the game on the spot. Absorber is kind of similar. You can give Overwhelm. The other cute thing about these two cards is you can use it in Tristana because Tristana is going to be really, really big by the time you go to turn 6 or 7. So you're able to kind of sneak in lethal through the Overwhelm or through the elusive if the opponent is unprepared. We are playing like Buster Shots and Pokey Sticks to just kind of deal with some of the opponent's units, rather negation to keep our units alive, etc., etc., etc. I think it's very solid and should be interesting to try to cheese opponents with this stuff until opponents get better at it. Then let's move on to the next champion that got buff / changed, and that is Master Yi. Now this one is giving you a Master Yi Zoe deck list that for some of you might look very similar to like a Zoe Lee Sin list, right? Of like the past. Bye bye Lee Sin, hello Master Yi. I think with the new buff to Master Yi, it has a really great chance of just leveling up in this deck and just kind of taking over the game, because the opponent has to also worry about that Zoe before she levels up, etc., etc., etc. We don't play that many units, but the units that we do play are giving us value one way or the other, whether it's the shine or the gems that we can use to kind of trigger flow on the Master Yi. The Shepherd giving us the equipment, especially if we can overwhelm a scout. It's kind of like a high roll. Then we have our 1-cost spells, Momentous Choice, 1 Wuju style to advance the Zoe in case that we don't have 2 Master Gs, Guiding Touch, Block, Escape, Sonic Wave. Like the rest is kind of like things that help you stall, but also help trigger flow to just kind of level up your Master G and kind of take over the game. We have some defensive tools that deny concuss upon demeditation and growth the soul to kind of keep us alive, and then even play equipment like the Darkening Fan and the Lowstone to either make our unit stronger or be able to heal up a little more, and in case of emergencies can always play a trifecta. It's a very solid kind of like control type of deck where you're kind of waiting to set up and have the protection of a unit to keep you alive until you're ready to just pounce and get rid of the opponent's nexus. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next deck. So for the next deck, we're going to continue with Master Yi, and now we're going to get to Ornn territory. And you all know how much I love Master Yi and Ornn pairing, having been one of the people that actually reached Masters with this combination back when they were both released. Now, this deck got a few changes. Obviously, we now add the Weapon Myth Apprentice that got buffed. We add an additional Artisan that also got buffed. The rest of the deck is almost exactly the same, right? You have to play kind of all this equipment, in my opinion, because the equipment that you really want are Overwhelm or Scout. So having multiple of these Weapon Masters increases the odds of you getting one of those. That also will enable Momentous Choice, which is the easiest way to trigger flow. The other nice way to trigger flow is to actually spend that time and dedication, whether it's from the Forge or the Artisan, to actually get to that point. I do still like the Darkening Fan in this deck. Kind of gets us a lot of value if you just attach it with Master Yi or something similar to be able to attack and push damage that way. Then you have ads, especially with the Forge, by the way. With the Forge, the Darkening Fan is actually going to be a really big threat against most opponents. And then you have a lot of protections, right? Unforgiving Cold, I think, is still better than Harsh Winds. Sonic Wave, Troll Shan, Three Sisters, kind of protecting yourself while also being able to deal with the opponent's threats. Really solid. Both champions got buffed. Their packages got buffed. I'm excited to see how they work out together after the changes that they have received. Now we're going to continue with Ornn though. And this time I'm doing Ornn Jax. Obviously, straightforward. You have a lot of Weapon Masters here. Just kind of build your deck with Weapon Masters. In this case, Castaway, Shepherd, Combat Cook. And then we also have the Jax himself, right? The idea is that we're able to kind of forge all these equipments that we improvise and kind of get value from there. We get to play Blades of the Fallen because actually, if we do it on a unit that really has a weapon that's forged, it means that it comes back with that forged weapon, and it's gonna be like freaking amazing. Cash and Fish Fight. Fish Fight is the big thing that changes in this deck, and now we're able to play Fish Fight with Ornn because it became a Weapon Master card, so it's Chef's Kiss. We have a lot of draw. We have some protection. We have some protection here as well with the Troll Shan. Pretty solid definition of the spells that you should expect in most failure decks. One things that are kind of cute here, we are playing Double Mender to kind of just make a singular unit really strong if we need to. And we also even play the Iceblood Cultist. In case that we have a lot of our Weapon Masters that don't have the Open keyboard, we can give it to them here with one of the Cultists that we might potentially draw. Could be a little cute alternate win condition that the opponent might not be ready to deal with. So just, might as well, let's keep it in the deck. Then we're going to do another Jax deck. And this time, it's going to be Jax Vi Timelines. Now, some of you might be familiar with this deck. Really popular when the Weapon Masters came out. And one of the reasons why Timelines probably got nerfed. The idea is that you're getting a lot of value from the Weapon Masters, being able to transfer their stats and their weapon into the unit that they're going to transform to. So obviously, we play the full Weapon Master package. triple catch, similar to the own deck, and now we're able to play fish fight, so we have better ways to remove the opponent's units away from the field and kind of protect ourselves from kind of like losing. Mystic Shuffles of Burn, a lot of draw here, and then you kind of end up with like a lot of like early units that help you draw, or in the case of the Chompers, let you have a Chompers to kind of pull the opponent's units away from you. Then we go with Braum Kayle. Now, this is kind of my attempt at Kayle. I think there's going to be a lot of Kayle decks that could probably come out of this. But in the short time that I have, this is kind of all I could think about. It's kind of like a mix of like Poro Kayle, and obviously the Solani's in there, the Mihira's in there, Winged Messenger's in there. It's kind of like a mix all back, right? So the idea here is all about Spirits Unleashed. You play Spirits Unleashed, and now all of your cards are going to be buffed, which means that when they die, they're advancing your Solani, and they're also, every time they attack, they're advancing your Kayle. So you want to make sure that you do Spirits Unleashed early. It's kind of like the key card in this deck. Otherwise, rely on the Asmos and the Lodestone to kind of buff your units and get value from there, or Pel Cascade as you need to, until we actually draw into the Spirits Unleashed. Obviously, the Mihira, if she sticks in the field, she's going to be able to just take over as well. That's why we do play the triple Troll Shan and the Pel Cascade and the Three Sisters to actually be able to protect Mihira as soon as she drops down in the field. Really solid deck. I think it could obviously take over. If the opponent has to be careful, you kind of have like a lot of mid-range threat with Mihira and Kayle, and then also have a really big late-game threat with Solani or Horasi. So the opponent has to really be careful of how they manage their resources to be able to deal with you before you get to that spot. Next up, we have Ahri Kennen. Now, you might be wondering, what's different in this deck? Well, did you see? Triple Dragoncaller. I was sitting there thinking about, okay, Dragoncaller. As I mentioned in my Passional Breakdown, it needs to be something that you can proactively do, right? Proactively use your spells so that you can actually proactively trigger the Dragoncaller. You know what does that really well? Kennen. Because Kennen is getting the Mark of the Owls for free every time you recall him and summon him. You're able to kind of afford to play those Mark of the Owls and then play another spell with no problem. So that's kind of where the idea of Kennen Ahri came in, that you're able to do those Mark of the Owls and trigger the flow and get value from that way and just continue triggering the Dragoncaller. The rest of the deck is kind of like that regular elusive Ahri Kennen win condition. Obviously, we're in failure, so we're playing Triple Spirits Unleashed, which is going to make all our elusives go out of that 1 health range, which is amazing. And it's going to make the opponent's life really, really miserable if you can hit multiple Spirits Unleashed, especially. You're going to be able to end games on the spot. Really solid game. Again, it's mostly elusive, but the Dragoncaller is nice as an alternate win condition. That's also going to give you an elusive dragon. So give it a shot, see how it goes. If you don't like it, that's fine. I don't think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of decks that are using Spirits Unleashed that are just super powerful. And this is just going to be one of them. Like, this card is just carrying so many decks. And obviously, it's nice now because we still die into Quietus, but it's a lot easier to avoid it as soon as we do like a Spirits Unleashed or something. So then we're going to showcase LoR's and Jayce. Now, this is not just the mid-range LoR's and Jayce. This is actually the version that's playing the full Chompers package. Now, if you're not familiar with this version that Davo, I think, made up about a year ago, the idea is that you're able to play like all these Chompers, all these units, and then kind of just do like a For Demacia or something similar, or obviously the Jade spell to kind of take over the game from there. The benefit with this deck list now is that we have access to Champion Strength. So now we don't need to have For Demacia. We could like fill our whole board and then go for Champion Strength. The other buff card here is Albus Ferros, right? So Albus Ferros is really nice because now it's going to be burning your opponent by 3. So even if your attack was not able to do it, if you draw that Albus Ferros, it's going to finish up the game for you like this next time. So always nice to kind of have this around as well. The last deck that I have today, my 15th deck recommendation of the day, is Thralls. Of course, I saved Thralls for last. So Thralls got just buffed again because of Lissandra. And if I was playing Thralls, this is what I would play right now. Aside from Lissandra, the new addition is the Rockbeard Shepherd, right? The Rockbeard Shepherd will allow you to start lowering down the countdown of your Thralls, which is really, really important. And there's a situation where if your Thralls are like back to back to back, then you're able to kind of chain them. Once you summon the first one, you will summon the second one, you will summon the third one, etc., etc. really solid. The rest of the deck is very straightforward to how every Thralls deck used to look in the past. Obviously, after the nerf to the spell that duplicates the landmark, we're no longer playing that because that's way too expensive. Instead, I'm a big fan of Inquisitor to just kind of put a lot of pressure on the opponent and be a unit that the opponent has to deal with, otherwise they're gonna be in trouble. So really fun deck. I think it's gonna be solid and could make a really nice comeback into the meta. We have a lot of tools here as well. Like potentially you could play Harsh Winds. I'm on 3 Sister Steals because sometimes I like obliterating the opponent's unit to allow my overwhelm to go through, but 3 Sisters could also do the trick if you want more defensive tools. But that's gonna be it. That's pretty much it. Now, while those are my 15 deck recommendations, there is one more thing I wanted to share with you guys. Those are the 15 decks that I recommend, and as you saw, all those decks have cards that got changed, whether it's buffed or new cards, right? And that's my goal when I recommend those 15. However, if you're like really want to grind and be like serious try-harding as soon as the patch goes live, then there's a few decks that today are very powerful that didn't really get touched, and I think will continue to be powerful. So Yi Ornn is a big one. I think this deck is still gonna be pretty powerful. Obviously, Spirits Unleashed is still a thing, etc. Feel the Rush also still gonna be very powerful. And we talked about Echo Gens, right? So Echo Gens, Feel the Rush, and Yi Ornn are still gonna be nuts. And you know what else is gonna be absolutely nuts? Nora decks. So you kind of see them here: Nora Braum, Nora Swain, Nora Vhagar, especially now that Vhagar cannot get hit by Quietus. Nora Heimer, if you prefer that instead of Vhagar. I think Nora deck stocks are also gonna go up and up and up and up and up and up and up. So if you're looking to try hard, just pick one of these decks that didn't get touched. If you're looking to have more fun, you have 15 decks that I just recommended for you. Pick any of those and let me know how it goes. Oh, that was me speaking a lot, right? I think that's gonna be it for me today. Oh, hope you all enjoyed this patch notes breakdown and 15 deck recommendations. If you did, make sure to like the video below and subscribe to us. We post our videos every single day. You can also follow us on Twitch at Twitter. We stream every now and then, and you can also find us on Discord and Twitter. The links to those are both in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all again tomorrow for new patch shenanigans.